Greetings, Roots Reggae Hub Massive. I'm Shayna McCullough. It is Melody Mondays, and we're live here on the Roots Reggae Hub. Get back up on the road, so you see. Only have one decision to make. Want to tell me, say it never easy to leave. Yeah, they are my cheat. But I only see it up on IG. Cause you're jealous of me, we'll spend our time. Don't jealous of we, girl, you know you're mine. You tell me the breaks every day from him. We're live here on the Roots Reggae Hub. I have a special interview today with Luca. I am Luca on Instagram. Thank you for everyone who's tuning in. I'm about to add him in right now on Instagram Live. If you're tuned in on the radio, come join us over on the Instagram if you want to see the video portion of this tonight. Right now, and start the interview. Hope you guys are all feeling good tonight. Hope you guys are all feeling blessed wherever you're tuned in from. Hey, Luca.
What's going on?
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Awesome.
I'm well.
I'm so happy to talk to you tonight. Just because I found you like spontaneously on Instagram and you were doing that cover of the Chronic song.
Okay, got you. That's one of my favorite records to this day.
And I was like, oh my God, this man is so talented. You have a beautiful voice. So I was like, oh, I just started following you from then and watching your movements, seeing what you're doing. You know, your father, and you love your daughter so much. It touched my heart. I was like, he's such a good dad, you know? I was like, yeah, it warms my heart to see all that you are as an artist, all that you are as a man. So I just was like, I have to interview him. I'm doing an R&B soul series. You're the first of the series.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'm honored.
I have a few more lined up for the month.
No.
So I was like, I have to get him in, you know. Bless up everybody coming in. Hi, Cairo. I see you. And everyone tuned in on the radio, you guys can join us on the Instagram if you like. Right now we're broadcasting to 228 countries around the world.
Wow.
Yeah, so
That's
big
dope.
things.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's crazy.
Are you in New York?
I'm in New York. Correct.
Nice. Okay, I was worried. I didn't know where you were. I didn't know if you were on the East Coast or the West Coast.
Yeah, no, it was same time zone, so it kind of worked out the way it was supposed to, you know?
Yes, definitely. So tell me, for anyone that doesn't know you, never heard your music, and maybe just hearing your music tonight for the first time, I was playing a little bit of Why Pree just now on the intro. For everybody that's tuned in, let them know who you are in your own words.
Yeah, so for those of you who do not know me, I go by the name of Luca. That's spelled Leuca. I would just call myself an all-around creative. You know, I think in short, I can call myself a singer, a songwriter, a producer. But, you know, there are other needs that I've picked up on. You know, over time, I've become a videographer of sorts, you know, a video editor of sorts. I put together my own shows, you know, I do all that kind of stuff, sets for shows rather. But really, you know, just all around creative, you know, who's driven by faith and by passion. That's something that really drives me to just get up every single day and to do what I love, you know, every single moment that I can. So that's Luca.
I love that. You wear many hats, obviously. You know,
I do.
all around artist. Doing big things. I'm like, this guy's gonna blow up. I was like, I saw you. I was like, he is about to blow up.
From your mouth to God's
you know,
ears, yo, I'm telling you.
I was like, oh no, it's just you have such a talent, and you know sometimes talents they're not always discovered, but I just felt it in my soul. I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's gonna do big things. I gotta get to him first before anyone else.
I appreciate that.
Tell me, I like to when in my interviews, when I talk to someone, I like to reason with people and like get to know like the roots, like your foundation, what makes you who you are. So a lot of the times I start at the root of the tree, and so to speak. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So tell me about your childhood growing up. How was that for you?
Yeah,
Your family life?
Man, it was, I guess, interesting to say the least. I'm I'm from a Jamaican woman and an Irish man. So yeah, my pops had jungle fever, my mom had jungle fever, one or the other. But yeah, so I basically grew up in a mixed household. I grew up around a lot of my Jamaican family, being that my dad either didn't have a lot or a lot weren't alive at the time. So I was really surrounded by and immersed in a lot of Jamaican culture since I was like really young. You know, for anybody who's from New York, you have Jamaican family in Brooklyn. You got some in Florida. You got some in England. You got some in Canada. So I spent a lot of time around my Brooklyn family. My Jamaican Brooklyn family, and yeah, I guess more about my personal life. Um, Pretty much at the age of, I want to say, around 13 or so. It was revealed to me, like in a family meeting, that my dad was alcoholic. So that was like a huge part of my life that kind of defined so much for me, in a lot of negative ways, unfortunately. At the time, from then up until I would say the beginning of my college experience, it kind of defined the way I looked at my dad and really dictated a lot of the experiences that we had in the house growing up. There was a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, a lot of bitterness. And it was just most times dysfunctional, stemming from my parents' relationship. And then, anywhere to like the parenting skills and, the different aspects that we've had to kind of endure and figure out and live through, in our lives. That's been definitely a huge defining factor in my life, in my art, and everything. It's definitely made me who I am today. Um, but yeah, that's something that is, I'd say, like a huge staple, in just my upbringing is truly to find who I am, that my Jamaican roots and really identifying with that growing up. I really didn't have much white family to talk to be around. I was really just like, I grew up like this Jamaican little boy, like this pretty much black little boy, like, that's who I was growing up. I really identified as that, and it was something that truly made me who I am today. So, there was that aspect of it. It was interesting to say the least. There was a lot of identity crisis, I think, for me too. I think even till today, I'm clearly, as you can see, fair skinned, but a lot of people, will try to treat me like that, and I don't really, identify or feel like that at the end of the day. It's something that I never really ever got to experience, entitlement and, being on the other side of, race and stuff like that. It wasn't something that I ever got to experience. I got to experience the struggle. I got to experience, having that minority mindset and all those things. They kind of just, define who I am today. So that's a little a nutshell of what I've been through in my upbringing.
Very deep, very deep. And anyone that, has someone in their family struggling with addiction, it's always hard, especially as a child, because you might not even realize it at a young age that it even is an issue, unless it's a very obvious one. And for you to have that, were you able to, sort of come to terms and as you got older? I know you recently lost your father. Condolences again.
Thank you.
And I see that you're still going through, grieving and whatnot. And it's a
Yeah,
process, it's not something that happens overnight. Sometimes it's a lifelong process. Um, so my heart goes out to you and
thank you.
in that. So was it something that you're able to reconcile with him, closer to, to losing, I guess, to his transitioning? Were you
Yeah,
able to reconcile that history or?
definitely. I mean, the unfortunate thing about, I guess, his death was just the fact that it was like a COVID death. And, he was up there in age. He died at the age of 76. So, it was obviously he's an at-risk case. He had, health problems already. And then, the addiction didn't really help because, that was something that kind of went with him to the grave, unfortunately. But during the last week of his life, he was in the hospital. And I guess up until that final week of his life, there was still, and I wouldn't even say still because there was a lot of, I guess, personal reconciliation that I was dealing with. being separated from him because I lived with him up until the age of, I want to say, 18, 19 range. And, him and my mom separated, and basically we were in two different places. So it was easier for me to kind of deal with those aspects of my life and those aspects of him and I's relationship, until I became a father. And it was just like rising up again in me, all this bitterness and resentment, and, taking on this new season of my life and taking on something that I'd never experienced a healthy relationship in. And it truly, I guess, rocked me. Like, it was something that took me by storm. And obviously, emotions just naturally rose up again. And a lot of things that weren't addressed, when I thought they were addressed, years back, because I became a father at 24. And I thought I was, done with things, around the age of 21. I thought, things were good. I thought things were settled. I thought, I had gotten my mind to a good place. And, unfortunately, I realized that I didn't, So our last few encounters, they weren't bad. I saw my dad probably this year before he passed. I want to say I saw him maybe like 2 to 3 times, and they weren't bad. The last time that I saw him, he met his granddaughter, which I was really thankful for. That was something that, I was really happy about, in, just dealing with his death. But, they weren't bad. And when things went south, they really went south. He ended up on a vent breathing for him, for the last week of his life. And it was really a personal decision that I had to make, that everybody in my family, my siblings, I have an older brother and sister, my mom, all of us really had to come to terms with the fact that, there are a lot of emotions that we've had to deal with because of him, and that we've had to go through as a family in our household, so on and so forth, that we kind of had to just put aside and say, you know what, enough is enough. Family is family, regardless of our differences, regardless of the things that we have had to experience, because of him and in spite of him. These aren't things that we're going to hold against him, not as he's transitioning, not as he's going, to meet his maker, kind of thing. And all of us, my siblings and I, my mom, all of us had personal encounters with him on his deathbed, essentially. And I know for me personally, I can't speak for anybody else, but, I got to get things off my chest and say how much I forgive him, and, or forgave him rather. And, you know, basically that I wasn't holding anything against him, and I wasn't letting those burdens follow him into his grave, because it didn't, after a week, it didn't look good, and they knew they were gonna have to pull the plug. So it was just something that I had to do for myself, but I also wanted to do for him. And I think the grieving process, is so layered, because I was actually talking to my therapist about it. I essentially, grieving the loss of my father, but I'm also grieving, what could have been. And that's like the hardest part, because, I never expected losing him so quickly. Again, I'm only 24 years old, and I already, lost my dad. So it's like it's a very quick thing that I've had to go through, in my life, and not having him for the rest of it, and his granddaughter not having him there. So these are all things that I've just been thinking about, that have wrapped around my head. Um, but definitely, aside from just grieving the loss of him, grieving what could have been, with him. So that's something that it's gonna be a lifelong thing. It's gonna be a lifelong process. It's gonna be something that I'm continually gonna have to deal with. There are still moments where, after a week or 2 weeks of not really even, like, not necessarily thinking about it, but like focusing on it, and being emotional about it, it's something that still creeps up on me. And just like that, I'm just in an instance, just like, you know, dreading, and, weeping about, because it's something that is detrimental, in certain senses. So it's definitely, it's a process. That's the most I can say about it. But I was able to make peace with him at the end of the day, and that's something that I can truly have peace with myself now because of that. So
I like that you were able to do that and find some sort of peace. You know, a lot of times forgiveness is for not so much for the other person, but a lot of times for yourself, you know, and it also does help the other person, but it does so much as
Absolutely.
well for yourself and your own peace of mind and your own, you know, step towards the healing process. I
Yep,
think it's the
for
first
sure.
step in healing, you know, yourself and others. If that's what should happen, and I do believe that's a good way to go about it, and even therapy, that's a good way to go about it, because
Oh,
I found my therapist and I was like, this is the best thing I could ever done. You know, a lot of people a lot of people are so you know, there's some type of scare, maybe fear towards speaking to someone else,
mm-hmm.
but it really does help. I found that out going through some PTSD and whatnot, and that
Oh, wow.
anxiety, and you know, it changed my life. So, you know, keep with it and stick to it, and keep doing big things, because also you have an outlet through art,
Yeah,
and that's
so
also a
helpful.
way of healing.
So
You know,
helpful.
expressing
Yep,
yourself through art. So that, and then that way you're being vulnerable, and people feel the music even more when you are revealing of
absolutely.
who you truly are through art. So thank you for that courage.
Of
Um,
course.
yeah, to share your story.
Hmm. Thank you.
What is something you learned from either your mother or your father growing up that you were definitely going to pass down to your legacy in your daughter?
Yeah, I guess I experienced it while I was growing up and didn't realize it, but it was something that I actually came to terms with and understood more of when my dad passed. Which is like the one thing that is like my mantra now is and it's not even really a mantra, it's just a word, it's just grace. Like that's something that is so inevitable. Like, it's like you've been dealing with emotions for so long. You've been dealing with a traumatic experience, and you've been dealing with wrestling with God, and the one thing that you can always fall on is grace. And the reason why I think I learned it from both my father and my mother is because I guess just because of their relationship, it was always, to me, the way I remembered it, like dysfunctional. So, seeing how my mom kind of stuck with my dad for as long as she did in a marriage, and to his deathbed, because they were separated, but they were never divorced. This was something that I was able to see, that they were able to see through, until literally death did them part. But just seeing how she, I guess for lack of a better term, tolerated my dad, tolerated his addictions, tolerated all these things. Um, there was grace for him there, but also I guess it's kind of twofold when it deals with my dad because he never, despite how anybody treated him, whatever they said about him, whatever was done towards him, he never resented or acted maliciously to any of us, to us or to anyone else that he's had negative experiences with. There's always been love with him. And I think I had to reciprocate that with him, which is why I say it's like a twofold thing because I really had to show that grace before he left. And it's something that I'm going to teach my daughter because grace is such an important thing. Just like I said, I had to really, like you were saying, I had to forgive my dad for me. A lot of it was for me, but it was also for him. And I think holding grudges and holding this bitterness and resentment towards people in your life takes away so much time, takes away so much precious time that you don't even know when things are going to end. You don't know how or when you're going to get things back, because everything just keeps on moving. And it's something that I want to just really instill in her because one, like as imperfect as my dad was, as imperfect as my mom is, so am I. I don't have the right to point a finger at anybody, not just them, but anybody. All of us have our flaws. All of us fall short. All of us do not measure up, the way that we need to. Sometimes, at one point, at least one point in your life, you're going to fall short. Um, so grace is something that you're always going to have to be able to give, and it has to be um, something that you freely give to people. It's not something that you withhold or that you pick and choose who's going to get it. As hard as that may sound, it's something that is very inevitable. And you'll see it, with a loved one on a deathbed. Like it's something that you have to do for you at the end of the day. So it makes no sense to continue harboring, yourself in these emotions, and you know, it just becomes worse after a while. So it's something that you have to truly express, to everybody that you come across, everybody that does you wrong, everybody that that you have something against. That's something that you have to really and truly face for yourself as grace. So
What a wonderful lesson, not just for your daughter, but for all of us, to go through life with a little more grace and to handle things in grace with grace. It's very elevating, and it raises, your energy, your frequency, and then you're able to put that out into the world and also receive that back. Because I do believe what you put out, you do get back. Um,
absolutely,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely,
Thank you for that lesson.
of course.
Um, Tell me, what are your creative inspirations? I know some of your childhood might have inspired you, but what influences your music today? The music that you write and you create.
Um, Man, I think what the overarching theme, I guess, of my music is really just relationships. I have experienced relationships my entire life, and when I say relationships, I really mean like dysfunctional relationships, relationships that have not worked out. Like I feel like I've literally all my life seen relationships fail, and I haven't realized until, I guess, as of late, coming to terms with who I am now and my own sound and what I'm trying to push and what I'm trying to represent as an artist. And it's really heavily influenced by the fact that I've never seen a healthy relationship in my life. 9 times out of 10, what I'm writing about and what's naturally coming out of my mouth and coming out of me is about a dysfunctional relationship, about somebody being cheated on, about somebody being mistreated, about you losing a good thing, about so on and so forth. It's just like all about this dysfunction and this stigma around relationships. And it's something, I guess, just even circling back to what I was saying about my parents, it's something that I've always seen and experienced growing up. So it's something that has kind of subconsciously been inside of me for a very long time that I just wanted to share with the world, and say, what, this is really how things are. In certain instances and in certain cases, some people struggle with love, and some people struggle compromising, and some people struggle trying to work things out. You know what I mean? Like that's just what the reality of the situation is. And more often than not, I think we try to hide that imperfection when 9 times out of 10 the next couple or the next people, like the people that are surrounding us, are going through the same exact thing. you know just like I said before, everybody's imperfect. And I think that we need to take the lens off of, oh, what good can I capture out of this, and what is a real thing that can really relate us as people, and it's love. You know what I mean? Like it's something that is so universal that we, I don't know if you heard me. I said that we really don't have any control over. It's something that is there, and naturally relationships form because of it. And somebody's always gonna have a story about a relationship, and it's something that I just feel like I can speak directly about. I can share honestly about, because I've experienced it in my past, and I experience it now being married, and I experience it now being a father. There are so many different aspects of having a relationship with somebody that are worth talking about. You know what I mean? And being real about it, being honest about it, not faking it, but just saying, yo, this is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, this is what a relationship is about, and not sugarcoating it, but giving it a real thing. So I think that's definitely, aside from my faith and, me just being so connected and interconnected with God, and my relationship with God is a huge factor. I mean, God is love. So that's something that we always have to emulate. Um, but, you know, us as human beings, we have to understand that we're imperfect products of that. And these are the things that we have to talk about relativity to perfection, I mean, in relativity to that love aspect, this God that we serve. These are the things that we experience because we live in an imperfect world. Relationships is a huge thing that, everybody can relate to and everybody can say, I've been through that, I've done that, unfortunately, like this is what it is. So I think that's definitely the big thing.
Yes, I love that. God is love, and it is in its perfect form. Um, and there's so many people that can relate to being in relationships that are toxic or, maybe abusive or sometimes even, codependent, even. And
Yeah,
that's a different type of relationship too. And I noticed that that's a reoccurring theme in your music, talking about relationships. And yeah, and that is such a way to relate to people because everyone has gone through relationships, at
exactly.
least one, and they can say, you learn a lot from going through relationships. You learn what you want, what you don't want. And yeah, I didn't even know you were married, so that's awesome.
I
Yeah,
am
you're so
married,
young.
happily married.
It's not even traditional anymore. Some people don't even get married, but I love that
Right.
you are, and you have your little girl, so that's awesome. And I noticed your wife, she does some of your videography too, right? I think I
Very
saw. Yeah, I
talented.
did think I think I saw that,
Yeah,
which is nice. I love that.
that's so helpful to me.
Yeah, right? It's so helpful. Tell me about the track. We're talking about Why Pree tonight, and I was obviously playing it on the intro, but I'll play a little snippet. I can't play out the full song here on Instagram,
No
but I
problem.
did listen to a lot of your music over this week, and I did curate a special playlist of just Luca music.
Nice.
So, following our interview, I'll be playing all of the tunes that I selected of yours in full for the radio listeners. So, anyone on Instagram, if you want to listen to more of Luca's music, you're going to have to join me on the radio on rootsradiohub.com, tune in app, Alexa, Google, whatever you want to listen to it on, Twitter, to hear the selections that I chose. Some of your favorite music, some of my favorite music of yours that I
Thank you.
curated. And
Thank
if
you.
anyone has any questions, now's the time to drop it in the little question box on the right hand side bottom of your screen. I might take one or two questions at the end. Or if you're on Twitter, you can also ask me in the DMs as well if you have a question for Luca. All right, so tell me about the concept for the song and production.
Yeah, I guess wow, to kind of piggyback off of what we've been talking about just with relationships. For those of you who do not know what why pre means, it really just means like what's good, like what's going on kind of thing. And or in other words, wagwan, you know what I mean? Like so in this instance specifically, I'm posing the question to a female who's in, a very toxic relationship, who I'm trying to entice to come be with me because I'm the real deal. I'm the person that you want to be with. I'm the one that's going to give you a good experience. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be something that is better than what you're experiencing right now. And I think I say this too all the time when I'm performing this song, that I think it doesn't necessarily have to just do with relationships specifically, but it's also about as human beings, we like to put ourselves in situations where we aren't valued the way that we should be, and that could be a job, that can be in a friendship, that can be with your own family sometimes, it doesn't necessarily just have to be in an intimate relationship, but it could be in so many other instances in your life where you go out of your way and you intentionally place yourself into a situation or a circumstance where you're not appreciated the way you should be. You're not loved. You're not valued. You're not honored the way that you should be. And if there's anything that I want people to take away from that record specifically, it's not just about it being fun and it's something you can dance to and stuff like that, but it's also just about there's a deeper meaning to it. Like I want the listener to feel like they're important, that they're valuable, that they're loved, and that they don't have to rely on other people for their value. They don't have to let other people dictate what that looks like for them. That they can set that bar and that standard for themselves, so that it radiates to other people when they see that. It's not about, oh, what does this person see in me that, yeah, I can kind of compromise with that. No, it's like I'm valuable. I'm me. This is who I am, and you're gonna treat me with that respect, kind of thing. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be a malicious thing. It's just this is what it is, and this is how we should approach relationships. how we should approach friendships, how we should approach our family members, how we should approach, job opportunities, so on and so forth. So that's really just, the premise of the song.
I love that. I do believe like you do teach people how to treat you a lot, by how what you accept, and what you don't accept, and
Absolutely.
it's a big track. I love the tune.
Thank you.
Great job. And did you produce
I did
the song?
everything, yeah. So
Everything,
I
right?
produced it, I wrote it, and engineered it as well. So I mixed it. So
Oh, awesome. So I'm gonna play about 30 to 40 seconds of the song here. But you guys will be able to hear the full song. If you're listening on the radio, just keep it locked here on the Roots Radio Hub after the Instagram interview. I will be playing all the songs out in full in my curated Luca playlist for the listeners on the radio. But this is Why Pree for you guys now by Luca. At I am Luca on Instagram. Go follow him now.
no.
Get about the ponder rocks so you see. Only have one decision to make. What the type of say it never easy to leave. You think I might cheat, but I only see it up when I cheat. Cause you're jealous of me, we spend our time. Don't jealous of me, girl, you know you're mine. You tell me you look better every day from you. So why don't you run so far from you? You don't care for now it's time for you to forward. Take a trip, girl, let's go forward. Cause I know that's what you want. Yeah. I don't wanna waste your time. Just roll with me tonight. I don't wanna waste this night. Just wanna get this vibe. I don't wanna waste your time. Just roll with me tonight.
Beautiful track by I Am Luca. Check him out on Instagram, guys. There's a lot of content on there. He's very open on his Instagram. He shares a lot of his life and his beautiful daughter as well. She's so gorgeous. And yeah, sharing his fatherhood, sharing, what life is about truly, and his creative vision as well. And also Luca Worlds, which we'll talk a little bit about in a minute.
For sure.
That was just a minute of the song. The full song is there's so much more to it. But I don't want to go to Instagram jail, so I'll play the
Nah,
full
for
song
you.
out
It's
for you
all
guys
good.
after I see questions coming in, which I will get to next. Tell me about the new track, Slow Motion. It's coming out on October 14th, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
correct.
Tell me about the concept for that song.
Yeah, Slow Motion is really just a track. First of all, I didn't even really make that song for me. Like, I kind of went through a phase, probably top of a pandemic, when I was just trying to create songs to pitch for other artists and, trying to get writing credits and production credits and so on and so forth. Um, I didn't realize, I guess, how hard that process was and like how many relationships you really have to have or like a situation, with either like a collective or like you were signed to somebody for that to like really stick. So a lot of those records I kind of revisited and I was like, nah, I can use this for myself. So I'm gonna use it for myself. And that was the track that kind of like, for whatever reason, especially across socials. So I really wrote this song like a free ball kind of thing that I just conceptualized as you giving up on a good thing and really wanting it back after it was too late. And again, it's really sensitive about relationships because a lot of us tend to give up on people or give up things that might want are like influenced by other people to think that we don't want or that we don't need. And it's, again, it's detrimental to us in the long run. And obviously everything happens for a reason and everything happens in its perfect timing. So it's not like you can't find love again or can't find a good thing again. But you kind of wish, damn, I wish I had that thing back. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where slow motion came from.
Yes, I think a lot of people can relate to that. I'm like, oh, the
Absolutely.
track is fire as well.
Thank you.
And like I'm sure you're gonna put some visuals to it, and
Oh,
you
I
sent
can't
me a
wait
little.
to.
I want to play a little bit for everybody here. The song. This is Luca, slow motion. Just another snippet, guys. It's a tease. It's a little tease.
I got my reasons for living in the middle of a dark. You know how focused I am. I didn't mean to hurt you, no. Ambition's a scary thing when it comes to laughing me. I took you far enough so far. We can make oceans. We could crash like the waves of the sea in slow motion. We could be all we planned to be before this ocean. But we only just a memory. I wish that you remember me. Take me back. Take me, crash like the waves of the sea. Take me back. Take me. We only just a memory. I wish that you take me. I took you far enough so far. We can make oceans. We could crash like the waves of the sea in slow motion. We could be all we planned to be before this ocean.
Beautiful, beautiful track. That's slow motion by Luca. Ah, your voice is so soothing, and I'm just like, okay, everything he's talking about, I can relate to. I played some of the music for a couple of my girls. They're like, oh, why is he speaking my life right now? It's one of my girlfriends like, I'm literally going through this exact moment what
Oh
he's
my
talking about.
gosh. That's crazy, yo.
Oh my
That's good
gosh,
to
it was like
hear. I'm glad to hear
timing for
that.
her. It's crazy. Big up to you for that tune. That is coming. I see someone asking when will that be released. That is coming out on October 14th. So, yes, it'll be on all platforms. We'll definitely be playing it here on the Roots Reggae Hub, on my curated playlist and on our 24-hour playlist as well. So you guys keep it locked. Tell me who you dream of collaborating with. Is there anyone specific that you think, okay, you're manifesting it. I'm going to collaborate with this person.
Yeah, I was thinking I had a few different options, and I'm just like, I would give, I guess, a different answer, but I think the one that stuck like the longest for me is just Jasmine Sullivan. Like, I have to work with Jasmine Sullivan. Like, if I don't work with Jasmine Sullivan before I die, I'm not going to be satisfied with my life. Like, that's really the one person that I need to actually work with.
She
Like,
is awesome. I'm a huge fan of hers. Been listening to her
yeah.
since the very beginning. And I would love to hear you guys both on a track. Oh, that would be
Hmm.
so fire. So fire. As a matter of fact, I'm going to reach out to her. I'm like, this is Luca. Luca, this is Jasmine.
Yo,
I'll be the
please.
middle man here, just
Oh
for my
my
own
gosh.
selfish desires.
I would love that. That would be something that I would really die like a happy man. Like, cause
Yeah.
she's literally been around musically for me like since I was a kid. I'm not scared of flying the tigers. Like, yo, come on, son. Like,
Oh man, my
it's
favorite
something
track
that
of all time.
I just grew up, around her and other kind of artists like that. So she's somebody that I guess like her. And then if I can give like a second, cause like I'm just really using like female R&B too. Like, but like Brandy, like one of them two, yeah, that has to happen like immediately. Like,
I can't wait. I
yeah.
can't wait. I love to touch on spirituality. Everyone has their own spiritual journey, whether you're religious or not. We're all going through different phases in our life, and experiencing, that sort of journey on our own, or maybe you're being helped through the journey with someone else. But whatever it is, tell me something that you have learned or that changed your perspective on life.
Oh man, that's a really good one. I think I'll touch on that second part because there was something that really happened to me, and I felt like God was just like really talking directly to me at one point. It was during the pandemic. It was like I want to say September of 2020. So we were like in it, you know what I mean? Like it was happening, and at the time I was still working, still working regular jobs, I was bouncing around. I never really stuck with like a job for longer than 10 months, so I was always at someplace different. And at the time I was working as an Amazon delivery driver. And it was just a really challenging time for me because, it was like very transitional. I was getting ready to get married the month after that. And it was challenging for me because I was spending a lot of time in devotions, praying, seeking God, like, for his word, and just trying to figure out what my next steps were going to be and what this new portion of my life as a married man was going to look like. And I guess I was just having a lot of back and forth with God about, my music. I've always wanted to do music full time, for a couple of years. Before that, it was something that I was trying to break into doing full time, and the artist thing just wasn't there yet. And even now, it's still a work in progress. Thankfully, I'm able to have this beautiful studio that I can host people and live off of that, which is dope. But I didn't have anything like that back then, and I really didn't want to go into my marriage doing what I was doing at that present moment. Something that I was just like, nah, it has to be different. It has to be something that that I'm not miserable, so I don't make my wife miserable. That wasn't something that I wanted to do. And I can remember it as clear as day. I used to pray on my way to work, just like reasoning with God, just like pleading with him. And one day I just felt like he spoke to me directly. And he said, "You can't expect me to move in your life if you don't give me the opportunity to or the room to." And I was like, damn, yo. Like that was something that rocked my world. And it was something to this day that I'm still learning so much about, and it's unfolding and it's unraveling in so many different ways. And it was just such a beautiful revelation that I was able to have. And the reason why I think it stuck with me so much is because I feel like God was really trying to make it clear to me that if I stay in a place of being comfortable, if I know where my money's coming from, if I'm working this job, if I'm doing something that gives me security and that I don't have to be like, oh shoot, what the heck am I gonna do? Like, how is this gonna come? Whatever the case may be, then I'm never going to truly be uncomfortable enough to rely solely on God and sacrifice my entire self, my entire heart to Him, right? And I think I went home that night, like I spoke to my fiance at the time, who was not my wife, and I was like, "Yo, babe, like this is what I really feel like God was like telling me," and like I just broke down into tears because it was just something that I felt like I was struggling with, and it was bothering me, and it's just, and God does this a lot to me. He just like speaks to me. He's like, "You better not ignore me," kind of thing. Like it's just something that's really like clear, that is just like you have to act on it, and she basically, like, I told her, I gave her my heart, and I told her what was going on, and she pulled out a calendar and she was like, "All right, what day you want to quit?" And like that was something that like really shifted everything for me. It was something that was very important, and where I am now. And she's always been that support system for me, but that place in my faith and in my walk is something that defines where I am right now. Because had I not made that decision to go into a marriage with not anything guaranteed, no job, no bread coming in, having to figure out what the future is going to look like, it really forced me to be faithful and to trust God. Like, God, you really got to come through because you told me something, and if you don't, then we can't eat. You know what I mean? So that was something that truly, truly defined who I am and everything.
I
Yeah.
love that you say God spoke to you, because You know, there's always signs and symbols, and sometimes communication comes through numbers, and like people don't understand how many ways that you can get your questions answered.
Absolutely.
You know, and there's always something. You just have to have your eyes open. Sometimes you might even hear a voice. Like, no lie,
Yeah.
you're not crazy. I swear you're
No, it's a
not.
fact.
It might be a voice, it might be a sign or a symbol. You ask a question, the answer comes. So, you know, that's amazing, and thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Sometimes you do have to have faith, and you have to have a knowing, and you know, it's a blessing when those answers um are found and when they come to you. So,
Hmm.
yes, that's profound.
Yeah, thank you.
I love that you have a great fusion. You know, I heard some of your other tracks. You have some hip hop in there. I was like, oh, okay. And you know, you're flowing, and you have a mixture of genres, soul, R&B. What genres of music have influenced you from childhood till now?
And so obviously, I mean, like if you couldn't tell by now, you know, I grew up in church. So I was always that was something that was like a huge, and I guess I should have given it with my other answer about just like my upbringing. That was something that really defined me, you know, being in church, being in choir, literally my entire life. So gospel music was something that heavily influenced me up until like now, really. But my high school years, my college years, you know, the year and a half that I went, it was definitely something that defined me and defined my music. And I guess that kind of gave me the faith base for everything that I speak about in my music because I make a bunch of references to my faith and to God and to my relationship with Him and stuff like that. It's not something that I'm ever afraid of, you know, and it's something that has truly defined, you know, who I am and where I am right now. Gospel music, I can remember vividly, like, you know, when I was a kid, there was an NDRE tape that my mom used to have that we used to play in like the cassette, like the deck, and like an Alicia Keys album. I can't remember the name of, you know, the one with the half her face and like the keys.
Yes, I
That's
love that
yeah.
album. I bought the CD.
You know, I'm pretty sure like everybody, if you was an R&B head, like you had that. My mom would always play them in the car. Like, you know, those are two projects that I can specifically remember. Kind of like influenced me when I was a kid, and this was probably I don't know before I was 10 years old, but just like would always hear it. You know, and my mom is Jamaican, so you know, I think that's also where like the gospel roots also came in because oh no, we're not listening to that right now. We're listening to gospel music on a Sunday and stuff like that. But yeah, that and I remember when I was a kid too in elementary school when iPods were still a thing. You know, my brother would have a bunch of music just loaded up onto his iPod, and I would just listen to stuff. When I was a kid, I was mad young, you know, didn't know what I was doing, but I just wanted to listen to you know his music because my older brother was cool, you know what I mean? So I would always like circle around to like Chris Brown, and you know, Chris Brown was like I was like a Chris Brown diehard fan when I was in elementary school. What? Like before he beat Rihanna, yo, that was like my man, yo. So he was like a
I
huge
feel
influence of
you.
mine.
I feel
And
that. I don't know.
um,
I don't know what's going on with Chris Brown now. I don't know. I saw him taking like a lot of pictures with girls and stuff. It was going on my feed. I was like, is he struggling? I don't know.
I
I,
don't
I don't know
know,
what's going on with that. But I saw a lot of girls on his lap and stuff like that. I was like, what's Chris Brown doing?
yo.
Did you see that?
I can't even keep up with that guy anymore. Yo.
I was
That
like,
was such a
there's a
childhood
bunch
thing,
of
yo.
girls with like pictures of Chris Brown and like the same pose, you know, over and over. I was like, what? But yes, I love those influences, and definitely gospel. A lot of people, especially Jamaicans, have
Hmm.
been, you know, raised in the church and, you know, had that influence. And like you can hear it in your music as well as like the soul that you have. And it really comes through in your relationship with God. That's amazing. I
Definitely.
think that will help as well as being a father, a young father, and husband, you know, having that
Hmm.
faith to move forward and to be the best that you can.
Yeah.
What comes first, the beat or the lyrics? Tell me about your creative process.
Definitely a beat, I would say. I used to kind of like flesh out a whole like looped idea with drums and stuff like that, but I think I've kind of more resorted to like at least laying down some keys, and from there I kind of come up with like a concept and a melody, and it's not even something that's like, oh, I want to talk about this today. It's just like whatever kind of naturally flows out, and the first line that I sing is kind of what I just like run with for the theme of the song. And from there I kind of just like work around what I've laid down at first, the keys and the vocal. I add drums if need be, I add other sounds and stuff like that. But I'd say definitely at least starts with keys. Sometimes I'll have like a beat idea. But I think it's a very joint like process. Both are kind of created at the same time, which is, I guess, the easiest way for me to work, just because it kind of keeps everything intact up here, like So yeah.
That's super interesting. I always wonder, I'm like, do they create the lyrics first and then they figure out the beat, or does the beat, or rhythm in some cases?
Hmm.
I always wonder, and everyone's different. Everyone's different. But
For sure.
if you play an instrument, it also, if you don't play an instrument, that might take, uh, I guess, an effect or affect the way your process is. But
Hmm.
thank you for sharing that.
For
Um,
sure.
Now, your songs do talk about relationships, so I wanted to ask you a relationship question. Since you're happily married, maybe you can give some
Hmm.
advice to the singles or the people in relationships or people even that are married. Um,
Hmm.
what would you say is the most problematic or thing that's lacking in modern day relationships, in romantic relationships of today?
Yeah. I think the way I'd phrase it is just kind of like in different senses, but a lot of issue that I feel like I see in so many different relationships, that I have the ability to witness, is just the fact that people are trying to create this facade, for people to see. And again, it goes back to the whole reason why I even make music, and I'm so heavily influenced by relationships, and why I mostly talk about them. It's because relationships are real life. You know what I mean? Relationships aren't something that are meant to be perfect at all times. There are things that happen, there are struggles, there are fights, there are arguments, there are disagreements. There are seasons where y'all don't like each other. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different points in a relationship, that I think people are so focused on the wrong things, which is publicizing how good their relationship is, as opposed to working on the things that they lack in their relationship. So the focus has to be on how can we get up every single day and be better for each other and be better to each other and with each other, as opposed to, oh, let me just post this on Instagram and like, yeah, like everything is cool, like everybody thinks everything is cool kind of thing. And like you don't understand how much you're like hurting your home life essentially. You know what I mean? That's something that I feel like is number one. And just, another thing too is like something my mom has always told me to, is just like communicate, like over communicate, like communicate so much. And a lot of people, naturally they just don't like sharing things, and it could be about, I don't know, trauma. It could just be about the fact that you don't feel like saying stuff, or whatever the case may be. But communication is such a key to a successful relationship. That could be a friendship, that could be a girlfriend, boyfriend, fiancés, husband and wife, anything. Communication really gets you furthest. So those are my two main points for
You guys heard
success.
it. You guys heard it from Luca. You want to make your relationships better. Communication is key. Work on your communication, deeper understanding of each other. It's a process, and the more you talk about it and the other person's needs, I think that you can get better relationships and understanding each other. I'm becoming a better communicator. I know that for sure. Thank you for
Yeah,
that
so
advice. So, anyone
of course.
listening, take that, write that down. Tell me something most people don't know about you or would never guess.
Man, I think the one thing that we've kind of already touched on is just like my ethnicity. Like I get all the time. Like I walk into the supermarket and I go to the register and they speak in Spanish to me, like, and I guess
Yes.
because of my hair or whatever the case may be,
Yes.
I'm light skinned. Like, yo, that's the one thing. Like I'm Jamaican and Irish. Once
Yes.
again, I'm Jamaican and Irish. Like
It's
That
funny
is,
because I'm Jamaican and Irish too, but no, I don't
are
even
you
say
serious?
Irish because people would never guess that. But
I met somebody just like that too. Like, they were
my
like,
daughter is
yo,
full
you're
on,
Jamaican Irish?
ginger, red hair. Yeah,
What?
yeah, she's a full on ginger, red hair, very fair skin, like
That
but
is crazy.
yeah, I was like, what? What's going on here? It skipped me, went to her. But I don't even mention the Irish because I can't pass as it. So,
Hmm.
but I definitely am the same mix, which is funny.
That is crazy. I've met more Jamaican and Irish people this year than I ever have in my entire life. Like, I've never met another person like me. Like, it's crazy.
Yes, I love that. I love
Crazy.
that yeah, she has the full on freckles, ginger hair, everything. So it's
Uh,
definitely, it came out in her because it's obvious with when you look at her, but not so obvious when you look at me. So I just say Jamaican.
yeah, no, I mean,
But yeah, you definitely should explain and try to, because I can see how you would get a bunch of different assumptions. Like definitely Spanish. You could get other, maybe Puerto Rican,
yep,
maybe
all the time.
Portuguese. A bunch, definitely. So I'm gonna ask a couple questions real quick from the audience. Do you have an outlet for rebalance and finding inner peace?
Ooh, man. I think, like we were touching on before, like when I am distressed or like I'm upset or like I just need something to just kind of like get things out, like I just create like that's probably my number one outlet for just letting things out, letting my emotions out. If I have to cry while I'm recording, like I will cry while I'm recording. And it's I mean, even up till recently, I just made a song honoring my dad, and the entire time I was creating it, like just upset, like what I mean, just weeping. But that's definitely something that's necessary for me, and I urge you to, if you're a creative in any way, shape, or form, whether that be a photographer, a poet, a musician, whatever it is, like just use that as an outlet because you were given that gift for a reason, and God didn't give you these emotions by mistake. So you need to utilize your gifts and utilize that as an outlet for what He's giving you to deal with. I think that and just the gym too is just like huge for me. Like I got into lifting weights 2019, I want to say. Yeah, the end of 2019, like right before COVID. And it's been something like if I just need to blow off some steam, if I'm just like not in the right mindset, then it's just something I need to go to the gym. I need to just like do something, move my body, like sweat, like just let all that crap out, and then come back, I'm good. Like you know what I mean? Like usually that's how it happens. So yeah,
No, that is a good way working out. I love yoga. I find it to be like meditation.
I've
It
heard good
helps
things about
me.
it too.
Yeah, it helps me. I did yoga right through COVID. I was stressed. I had anxiety. Didn't want to go to the grocery store. Just delivering everything to my house. I
Yeah.
was like, and a lot of artists like created through COVID. I was surprised how many people came out with new music. People got
Yeah.
busy. They couldn't leave their house. They're
Mhm.
like, okay, I'm gonna create a whole album right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel that from you. Let's ask a couple more questions from you guys. Thank you, Steve, for that question. And let's see. Honorio Music asked how to get past the first couple lines when writing. How do you get past the first couple lines when writing?
Man, I think my number one principle, and I think a lot of people would disagree with me, especially artists, but for me, it's like when I create, I don't like have limitations. So if I want to say like one line, I'm gonna build off that one line. If I have a melody idea, I'm gonna build off that melody idea. And I think a lot of people when they write, they get too wrapped up in the words of what you're writing. Like,
Mm,
and writing is so much more than the lyrics. It's also about the emotions that you're evoking in what you're saying and how you're saying it too, because that's really important when you're singing, especially. So getting past the first line is like just try stuff, just do it. You never know where you're gonna land.
mhm.
So fixated on oh man, I want to create a song specifically about like you're just never going to get anywhere when you're thinking like that, when you're in that mindset. You just gotta experiment and just go for it. Like there's been so many times where I've done that. Why Pree was one of those tracks where I just kind of like came up with the synth first, but the dun dun dun, and then like I just like went for it, and
Yes.
turned out to be, and thankfully enough, that track is has so much traction. It has over 100,000 streams on Apple Music right now. And it's just off an idea. So my advice is just try stuff out. Like just do it. Like who cares? Like nobody
Yes.
cares. Especially if you're alone and you have a home setup. Try that crap.
Get
Like
it done. Get it
come
done.
on. That's all it is. That's all it is.
Yes, I think when you overthink things, you're so right. When you overthink it, or you put it in your mind that you have a creative block or something like that, so it becomes a blockage. But when you release that, or release the fear, and especially like you said, you're at home creating too, and like you're by yourself, just let it flow. Whatever's inside
Yeah.
you.
No
Yeah,
judgment, just whatever, however you feel, just let it out,
I love that. Great advice. Thank you for that question. All right. What from Shay Kylax. Shay Kylax. What was your earliest first introduction to music? I think you kind of answered that.
Yeah, like I think it was definitely church.
Yeah,
Like
gospel.
the arts that I kind of grew up with was pretty much church, and I was taking actually dance classes since I was like 3 years old, so like 18.
Nice.
Yeah, so I was just like always in the arts. Like I was like lead role in a play in 8th grade. Um, there were different things, and then like in high school is when I actually started like really trying to pursue music. But yeah, it was heavily influenced by just my church roots. Like I started off like in a gospel rap group. Like that was like my
Oh,
real first, yeah, like introduction to music. Shout out LFG. But it's like it's always been gospel. It's always been church. It's always been my faith. That's been like my real first introduction to like what is music and like how should music feel. Because I think also to piggyback off of that, like I was a worship leader from like 14 to like 22 ish. So I was leading worship in my home church, and then like I went to another church, was leading worship there. So that was another thing that I learned how to kind of not necessarily like practice on, because it's more something that you feel inside of you, and
mm,
you connecting to like the Holy Spirit. But it's like, that was also like a huge influence for me. So it was like in different sections of my life, being in church and being around my faith is what really, kind of inspired me to be where I am today, and helps me still to communicate how I feel, not only by what I say, but how I say it and how I am displaying that, through my music. So,
awesome. Thank you for that question, Shay. Thank you for all the questions, guys. I can't get to all of them, unfortunately. There was one in the chat that kind of seemed interesting,
mm,
by Shata Steph. Any
my
reggae
brother.
or dancehall artists that you want to work with?
Man, the first one that comes to my mind, who I wish to this day we did collaborate on this track, was Cranium, because
Yes.
we were trying to, my manager and I were trying to get him on Sunrise actually, and man, like his DJ loved the song, like he's like, yo, I'm gonna circle it to him, and it just never ended up working out for whatever reason, but definitely love to work with Cranium. I'm trying to think who else. Man, dancehall,
Cranium and you would be awesome.
coffee. Coffee definitely,
Coffee,
yeah.
yes.
Trying to think. I guess like an obvious one, if I could bring it back to life, would be Bob Marley
I
for reggae
know,
artists.
right?
Yeah,
I
that would
wish we
be.
could bring him back to life. I really do.
Yeah, like that's not even that's a no-brainer right there. But yeah,
Yes.
definitely. I saw Coffee probably 2 3 months ago. She was live in been to, like super inspiring, and she's always been like super dope, honest artist to me. Like she doesn't really fake it, and I think that radiates. So that's something that just stands out to me. With her being an artist, like definitely is just a huge factor in wanting to collaborate with her. So
Yes. Big up
Yeah.
Coffee and big up Cranium. Coffee is amazing. I saw her first time in Toronto before
Yeah.
she won the Grammy, and I was like, she's going all the way. I knew she had a Grammy before she got the Grammy.
Uh-huh.
She's so
Yeah, she's
authentic.
L.
Yeah, she's so
Definitely.
authentic. Thank you so
Definitely.
much for joining me tonight, Luca. I had a great time talking with you. I do want you to let people know about Luca World Studio Space, other artists that might want to come to your studio, maybe want you to produce something for them. Let us know
Absolutely.
how can they do that.
Yeah, so I'm actually in the space right now. I have a studio space. It's entitled Luca World. It's called Luca World, and it's really just a place where I create it for people to come, feel comfortable creating. Like I've been in situations too many times where I've had to wait on other people and wait on people's agendas and be judged and so on and so forth. Um, and I just kind of wanted to create a space for me, and it just happened to raise other people. So I am based in Long Island, New York. So if anybody is ever looking to get any work done, I do have all my information at lucaworld.com. If you want to get production done, you want to have a writing session, you want to get some vocals recorded, please come through. Feel free to chat with me, reach out to me directly. I would love to create some magic with you guys. But yeah, Luca World Studios is it's not my actual child, but it's my other child.
Yes, it's your baby.
It's my baby,
Yeah,
and
the station is my baby as well. RootsRadioHub.com.
see,
I consider it my child. And any project I work on, of course, I consider it a baby. So you guys check him out, Luca World, and I am Luca as well on Instagram. Is there any other social media that we don't need to know for you?
no, just listen to fun.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
On the Instagram, any other projects or events coming up that we need to know about? Where are you going to be performing live or anything like that?
Yeah, so aside from I have the single coming out next month. It's entitled Slow Motion. So that's a single that I'm putting out next month, October 14th. You heard it here first because I have not even announced it yet,
Big
but I wanted to
tune.
do it. Yeah, just a little something special for this interview. So October 14th, I will put the pre-save at the link in my bio. I'm trying to do that and another single before the end of the year in around November or so. So stay tuned for that as well as a music video. You can stay updated about all releases and everything. Luca at lucaworld.com or at my regular page. I am Luca on Instagram, and also I'm doing like a mini tour with a company called So Far. They're pretty much worldwide, and I'm doing my next show with them is Baltimore this Thursday. So if you're in the Baltimore area, please come through. The ticket link is in my bio. You can find it at lucaworld.com/shows. And the following week on the 30th, I will be in Philly with them. So yes, that's where I'm performing live next, and I'm sure I'll have other opportunities for you to come see me after that in New York as well, because I just did a show with them on the 7th here. So yeah, stay updated at my website or at my Instagram page. I make all my announcements there for everybody to kind of see everything clearly. So
Thank you, Luca. I love getting to know you better, talking with you
thank you so
tonight.
much.
I'm going to continue to support, continue to play your music. And thank you for the gift of music that you're sharing with the world.
No, for sure. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You guys have a great night. Thank you for tuning in here. I'm Shayna McCullough. I'm signing out. One love, everybody. Bye,
Peace
Luca.
out. Take care.
Bye.